teacher who changed my life, telling me just one thing. Can I share it with you?
Yes.
She said, Fireguy, get good. I said, get good? She said, yeah, just get good at one thing. I said, only one thing? She said, uh-huh. Well, I said, why and how? She said, because if you can get good at one thing, after that you can get good at another thing, and then another thing, and you keep getting good at things over time. Layer those things like a delicious piece of cake, and eventually your life will be just as sweet. Throwing it up high in the air. I catch it. This time it won't go in the crowd.
When the day of Pentecost had come, they were all together in one place. And suddenly from heaven there came a sound like the rush of a violent wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. Divided tongues, as of fire, appeared among them, and a tongue rested on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other languages, as the Spirit gave them ability. Now there were devout Jews from every nation under heaven living in Jerusalem. And at this sound the crowd gathered and was bewildered, because each one heard them speaking in the native language of each. All were amazed and perplexed, saying to one another,
What does this mean?
but others sneered and said,
They are filled with new wine.
But Peter, standing with the 11, raised his voice and addressed them.
People of Judea and all who live in Jerusalem, let this be known to you, and listen to what I say. Indeed, these are not drunk, as you suppose, for it is only 9 o'clock in the morning. No, this is what was spoken through the prophet Joel. In the last days it will be, God declares, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. Even upon my slaves, both men and women, in these days I will pour out my spirit, and they shall prophesy. And I will show portents in the heavens above, and signs on the earth below, blood and fire, and smoky mist. The sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, before the coming of the Lord's great and glorious day. Then everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved.
I, the fiery life of divine wisdom, I ignite the beauty of the plains. I sparkle the waters, I burn the sun, and the moon, and the stars. With wisdom I order all rightly. Above all, I determine truth.
I'm going to read an excerpt now from Kristen Johnson Ingram's essay, Shekinah, the Glory of God, published in the journal Daughters of Sarah. The word Shekinah is a transliteration of a Hebrew word that is often used in Jewish writings to speak about God's presence. And of particular significance here is that the term is gendered feminine and means that which dwells, or perhaps she who dwells. I knew she would be kind, calm, and meek, would be like the portrayals in movies of the Virgin Mary, wise face, full of sweetness, a quiet and gentle spirit. Sagacious words would fall from her lips like petals. Her hand would steady me. She would be clothed in righteousness and adorned with charitable works. She will be nothing like me, I said, but she will make me better. I sometimes prayed to her, calling her lady and sister. I waited for her beside quiet pools and in the fern-light depths of the wood. I listened for her in the voices of flutes and harps, sought a vision of her in moments of peace. And so it was without my expectation that Shekinah roared into my life like a hurricane, like unchanneled electricity, like a torch suddenly thrust into the black darkness, like cosmic fanfare. She came unpredictably and unpredictable, full of demand and violent love, yanking me up and plunging me into the fire. She came as wind. She came as passionate intuition. She came as blinding light and breath-sucking presence. Shekinah came not as a handmaiden, but as a queen, not whispering, but crying out like a hoyden in the streets, bringing no consolation, but urgency of motion. She sails out of heaven on powerful wings. She dives out of heaven in flashing tongues of fire. She blazes from heaven onto altars like a supernova. She moved over the face of the waters at creation and caught the blood of the crucified Christ in her chalice. She is glory. She is light. She is clothed with the sun and stands on the moon. She wears a crown of 12 stars on her head. She takes other names. She is Shabbat. She is presence. And she is spirit, the Hebrew ruach. In the beginning, breath or spirit or wind rippled over the face of the womb of creation, brooded over and within the womb, stirred the waters to break and gush out, and let God give birth to everything. God the Spirit is not only holy, but determined to make you holy too. She urges you to eat, yes, just a little of the bread. And here, drink some of this wine, just to wash it down, just so you'll grow strong, just so you'll be fit for the kingdom of heaven. Act like God, you yell at raucous, fecund Shekinah. She reminds you that she is acting like God, is a matter of fact being God, whose whole full name rings creation like a bell and who roars through your bones like a mighty rushing wind. Because she is ageless, so are you in her presence. She doesn't care if you are 15 or 67. Because she is tireless, so are you when you're full of her, writing or sculpting or singing or rocking children into the night. Because she blesses earth, she will drive you to baking bread or shearing lambs, to preaching or painting, to using your hands to bless when you are in her presence. She will swallow you alive and make you more yourself than you dreamed you could be. A man planning to be a Catholic priest comes to see me regularly for spiritual counsel. Do you know God as Shekinah? I ask him one day. He blanches, he cringes. I'm afraid, he says finally. She will consume me. Yes.
This next reflection is a poem for South African women by June Jordan. And it's in commemoration of the 40,000 women and children who, on August 9th, 1956, presented themselves in bodily protest against the dumpus, or the pass system used to restrict the movement of Black South Africans in the capital of apartheid. So this was presented at the United Nations on August 9th, 1978. Our own shadows disappear as the feet of thousands by the tens of thousands pound the fallow land into new dust that, rising like a marvelous pollen, will be fertile, even as the first woman whispering imagination to the trees around her, made for righteous fruit, from such deliberate defense of life, as no other still will claim inferior to any other safety in the world. The whispers, too, they, intimate to the inmost ear of every spirit, now aroused, they, carousing in ferocious affirmation of all peaceable and loving amplitude, sound a certainly unbounded heat from a baptismal smoke where, yes, there will be fire. And the babies cease alarm as mothers, raising arms, and heart high as the stars so far unseen, nevertheless hurl into the universe a moving force, irreversible as light years, traveling to the open eye. And who will join this standing up? And the ones who stood without sweet company will sing and sing back into the mountains, and if necessary, even under the sea. We are the ones we have been waiting for.
Holy Spirit, you are the mighty way in which everything that is in the heavens, on the earth, and under the earth is penetrated with connectedness, is penetrated with relatedness. And this next is titled A Canticle to the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, giving life to all life, moving all creatures, root of all things, washing them clean, wiping out their mistakes, healing their wounds. You are our true life, luminous, wonderful, awakening the heart from its ancient sleep.
You're invited also to reflect on this poem by Alice Walker, When We Let the Spirit Lead Us. When we let the Spirit lead us, it is impossible to know where we are being led. And we know all we can believe, all we can hope, is that we are going home. That wherever Spirit takes us is where we live.